Hello, welcome once again to Lehto's Law. I'm Steve Lehto. I did a video not too long ago about how stores, generally speaking, aren't required to accept cash in payment of the goods and services they sell. And a couple people pointed out that there are a few places in America that are now requiring you to take cash if you do business in their city or in their state. Still a minority, but here's the thing. It's becoming the trend. There's a pushback on this. So it's time to update the story on whether or not stores are required to accept US dollars and cash to pay for something, or if they can require you to pay with plastic. And I'll tell you right now, what's really funny is this is one of those things. I was traveling in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan a couple years ago, and I stopped by a small store where somebody had bought a really old building in a cool old town, and they'd set up a coffee shop inside of it. And I think it used to be a bar, but anyways, you go in this place and it looks like an old timey saloon. But they had coffee and espresso and chocolate chip cookies and stuff like that. I thought, well, this looks really good, you know. So I ordered a bunch of stuff and I whipped out a debit card. And the woman looks at me, she goes, "We don't take plastic." I'm like, "What do you mean you don't take plastic?" She goes, "No, we don't take plastic." And she's a hippie. Okay, I'm just letting you know she was a hippie. And I looked at her and I'm like, I don't have any cash on me. But luckily, the people I was with, one of them had cash. And I said, "Look, I'll pay you back later." Um, don't get me wrong. She's allowed to do that. The same way that a store could, say we don't take cash unless they're in one of the weird places that doesn't allow it. But um, I have an update here from the Associated Press. The headline says, "As cashless stores grow, so does the backlash." A gentleman named Hembert Figueroa wanted to buy a taco in Manhattan, and he was surprised to learn the dollar bills in his pocket were no good at Dos Toros taco place. One of a small but growing number of establishments across the U.S. where customers can only pay by card or smartphone. Cash-free stores are generating a backlash among some activists and liberal-leaning policymakers who say the practice discriminates against people like Figueroa, who either lack bank accounts or rely on cash for many transactions. Figueroa is an iron worker, and he had to stand to the side holding his taco until a sympathetic cashier helped him find another customer willing to pay for his meal with a card in exchange for cash. He said, "I had money, and I couldn't pay." The issue got some high-profile attention this week when retail giant Amazon gave in to pressure from activists and agreed to accept cash at their more than 30 cashless stores, including its Amazon Go convenience stores, which have no cashiers, and its bookshops. Amazon declined to say when that change would take place. Now, there is no federal law that requires stores to accept cash, so lawmakers are working on the issue at the state and city level. And I mentioned that before, there's no federal law, and people would say, "Well, Steve, what about the fact that the bills say right on them, this note is legal tender for all debts, public and private?" And yes, this note is in fact public tender. But doesn't mean people are required to accept it in payment of debt. Earlier this year, Philadelphia became the first city to ban cashless stores, despite efforts by Amazon to dissuade that. New Jersey passed a statewide ban soon after, and a similar ban is working its way through the New York City Council. Before this year, there was only one jurisdiction that required businesses to accept cash, and that was Massachusetts, which passed its law nearly 40 years ago. So Philadelphia, the city, New Jersey, the state, New York, the city, might allow this, and Massachusetts has been doing this for decades. The potential societal cost of a cashless economy, I think, outweighs the potential benefits for businesses, said Richie Torres, a New York City councilman for the South Bronx, who introduced the bill. The societal cost of a cashless economy. Policymakers argue that while cashless enterprises aren't widespread now, the practice could expand to more services, including some that cater to low-income people. Walmart-owned Sam's Club opened its first cashierless store in Dallas last year, using technology that allows customers to scan and pay for items with their smartphones. Kroger has installed similar technology in about 400 stores nationwide. And a whole other story altogether about going cashierless. I tend to go to the aisles that have cashiers. I just don't like having to deal with the scanning and bagging all that stuff myself. There are times where I want to punch somebody when I simply can't get the plastic bags to open right. I know someday you expect to find me in the aisle at a supermarket shaking my fist at somebody. Darn you, plastic bags. But that's down the road still. Stadiums in Tampa Bay, Florida, and Atlanta have started to go cashless or nearly cashless. And the Barclays Center, where the Brooklyn Nets play, is now effectively cashless as well. Advocates for cashless bans worry technology is moving too fast for the 6.5% of American households who do not have a bank account, according to the FDIC. Figueroa, the man who had the taco that he could look at but not buy at first, is among the much larger group considered underbanked, meaning they have a primary bank account but regularly rely on alternative financial services like check cashers. More than 24 million U.S. households are underbanked, according to the FDIC. Now, this issue does disproportionately affect African American and Hispanic communities. About 17% of African American and 14% of Hispanic households have no bank accounts, compared to just 3% of white households, according again to the FDIC. Figueroa came here from the Dominican Republic. He only opened a credit union account 2 years ago. It took another year to build up enough funds to use his debit card regularly, but he still relies occasionally on a check casher if he needs money quickly, and much of his income comes in cash from his weekend job as a busboy. He has no credit card and no apps on his phone, and has only shopped online 3 times. I think I shopped online 3 times yesterday. I'll have you know, by the way, and again, it's the weekend, so we can throw in some other casual things here. I ordered a whiteboard yesterday. So in short order, I will be able to put up a whiteboard and diagram things because, let's face it, I can only do so much with the words coming out of my mouth and my hands. I need a whiteboard so I can draw you Venn diagrams and I can graph things. It'll be much easier than going like this to indicate that's a parabolic curve and this is a straight line, okay? So shortly, whiteboard. Mark my words. Business owners who go cashless say they are following the lead of the majority of customers who are abandoning cash payments. Retailers are under pressure to cater to customers with heightened expectations for fast and seamless service, driven by companies like Amazon, Uber, and Grubhub. And here's the thing: I usually have both in my wallet. It's just a matter of what I feel like dealing with, But there are times when I go into a gas station, and I want to buy something cheap. I'm not going to necessarily break my card out to buy a thing of Diet Coke, But on the other hand, I'm out at the pump. Card goes in, card comes out. Leo Kramer, co-owner of Dos Toros, said the volume of cash transactions at his stores fell from about 50% a decade ago to just 15% now. That made the cost and logistics of handling cash onerous. Before going cashless, Dos Toros locations were robbed twice. And that's another problem. Of course, handling cash can create safety issues, especially on the streets. Kramer said the company would adjust if they were legally required to accept cash. He said, yeah, of course they'd do it. And the quote is, there are no bad guys on this issue. Everyone is trying to do the right thing and make sure there are no unintended consequences, he said. Critics say banning cash-free stores is an overreaction. There are no overall estimates on how many U.S. stores have gone cashless, but it remains a rarity. In New York City, the trend appears to be gaining traction, mostly with fast, casual dining establishments like Dos Toros. Far more common are stores that require a minimum purchase for non-cash payments. I do book signings. I routinely go out and I speak places. I spoke last week about Douglas Houghton to the Michigan Mineralogical Society. And when I'm signing books and selling books after the event, I always say, by the way, I take cash, I'll accept checks, and I even take credit cards. And I have a Square reader on my phone. And it's remarkable how many people who are even in the generation ahead of me, if you know what I'm saying, who are familiar with running a card through a thing on a smartphone and then signing their name on the face of my smartphone. And, years ago, when that was first introduced, it seemed like, kind of unusual technology. But the fact is that people are getting very, very accustomed to that. So, interestingly, like I said, there is no federal law requiring people to accept cash. There are a couple states that require it and a couple cities that require it or are about to require it, and it might be coming to New York City where places will have to accept cash. We'll see if that happens. But in the meantime, I'll put the link to the story below in the description. Otherwise, questions or comments, shoot them away. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.